Romance. Romance is a topic as widely discussed in shows, movies, and books as it is complex. Chances are that while growing up, you've seen the concept of romance integrated and explored through classic childhood movies such as High School Musical 1, High School Musical 2, and of course, who could forget High School Musical 3? With romance being such a crucial part of the human experience, it's no wonder stuff like this is popular. But the age of 3D has birthed, lived, and inevitably deceased from our corporeal plane of existence, leaving a power vacuum per se, soon to be filled by the era of 2D. In a matter of years, your children will reminisce on the good old days of binging My Hero Academia. Mark my words, every woman will be obsessed with homoerotic superhero fanfictions and every dude's gonna have a fucking frog fetish. Now look, I know how it sounds, but it isn't all positives. We also have to deal with the multi-year intermissions between the first and second season of literally any show, which just happens to be a great segue into what this video is really about. A show recommended to me by some friends that I thought, hey, I guess I could give it a watch. I then proceeded to binge 8 episodes in a row, only stopping due to me being so tired that I lost the ability to read the subtitles. And that show, of course, is the incredible rom-com anime Rent-A-Girlfriend. Out of the tens of hundreds of anime rom-coms out there, why this one? Well, apart from it being the most recent one I've watched, it also seems to generally compress all the main aspects of your average rom-com anime into a nice 12-episode season, while also keeping it fresh with solid writing backed by an interesting concept. And yes, anime rom-coms differ a lot compared to its real-life counterparts. You ever look at the characters in something IRL and it seems like half the cast were grown in test tubes in Hollywood specifically for these roles. However, in anime, only the women are perfect. The lead guy looks like he could have been your best friend in high school, your roommate in college, or even you. Plus, on top of that, there's just a certain reverberation anime gives off, you know, that anime charm. Lusting over another man's harem, imitating aspects of their personality, or converting their waifu into a marketable plushie. All common traits of the average anime rom-com enjoyer. I'd love to dissect this a little further, however, I think it's only fair that I give you a little sneak peek into this wonderful little story. Please, enjoy. Rent-A-Girlfriend, or more accurately, platonic prostitution, the anime follows the sad and lonely existence of our ill-fated main character. 20-year-old Kazuya Kinoshita, a new college student living in Tokyo who recently got his very first girlfriend. But this relationship status only lasts for a little under 20 seconds of the very first episode before he's dumped in an unsettlingly happy tone. They'd been together for only a month, however, despite this, Kazuya was convinced that this woman was quote-unquote the one. So how does this respectable young man decide to process this unfortunate situation, dust himself off, get back on his feet, and work to improve himself as a person? Fuck no. Instead, he attempts to stalk her Twitter, but she was one step ahead by blocking his account. Kazuya somehow takes this as a sign that she's already moved on to another dude, which arouses him. Now, this next part might seem like a jump in logic, but I googled it, and apparently it's a thing in Japan. You can actually rent a woman, which you can then take on dates, and they'll pretend like they're in a relationship with you. You've got to really wonder what type of person would actually use a service like this. There is no way this dude would unironically purchase a girlfriend from the fucking Android Play Store. Right? It's the next day, and Kazuya's waiting in the designated meeting spot for the date he purchased with his father's grocery money when suddenly he gets cold feet, just now realizing the risks of using an app to buy the random time of a woman online. Luckily for him, however, he's a romance anime main character, therefore, legally, all women he interacts with have to be exceptionally good looking. And right on cue, our wonderful e-hooker spots Kazuya out of the crowd and introduces herself. Oh, and surprise surprise, she's dressed nice, well-spoken, and not to mention, incredibly hot. After a healthy amount of small talk, they head over to this lovely little cafe. Kazuya enjoys his time staring at the woman as she struggles to read the menu before suddenly she does a pose that vaguely resembles something his ex had used to do, which releases a flood of bad feelings into his mind, ruining his mood and making him want to leave. But he pushes through and goes forward with the date plan, with the next stop being the most romantic place he could possibly think of, the aquarium. When they arrive, she casually states that before this she had never been to an aquarium, which Kazuya responds by calling it unusual. In spite of this, the woman's charming demeanor holds strong, even complimenting his vast knowledge in animals of the aquatic variant, which, for possibly the 1000th time, flusters him. Eventually, the date ends, but while they're walking back to the train station, something very moving happens. It's silent between them. Nothing but the sounds of nightlife in Tokyo before their hands suddenly converge to hold on to one another. Finally breaking through Kazuya's bad attitude throughout the entire date so he can finally just let go and enjoy the experience for what it is. So, that's it, right? This is what he needs to get over his breakup and get back to his normal, functioning life. Again, I am extremely wrong. He instead chooses to read the reviews of her on the app and comes to find that it's merely protocol to hold hands with the client at the end of every date. Knowing this now made him possibly 10 times worse than before. Not only was he still sad about the breakup, but also extraordinarily embarrassed that he got bamboozled by a rental girlfriend. So of course he writes his own review that completely trashes on her over the fact that she didn't know the names of, according to him, common fish. Then deciding to rent her again just to give her a piece of his mind. For what exactly, I'm not too sure. Doing her job too well, I guess? So the next day rolls around, and just like the last time, they meet up for the date. At this point, you could probably guess that of course he fails at showing her out, instead sort of opting for nervously stumbling through the rest of the date. Now as they continue along, Kazuya casually drops these passive-aggressive quips at her rather than confronting her directly. Eventually, the tension builds so high that it seems like even the smallest confrontation could collapse the date entirely. Combining this tension with again going to the aquarium had set up a situation perfect for a full-scale meltdown from Kazuya. And soon enough, the last straw was placed when he saw that she went the extra step to research different fish names and various facts as an effort to relieve some of the bitterness in conversation with him. And this effort, although valiant, had the complete and total opposite effect. He begins to go on about how this whole rent-a-girlfriend thing doesn't actually mean anything since it's all an act, which makes no fucking sense since he was the schmuck who forked out a month's rent to do this whole thing in the first place. But that doesn't matter to him. All this really is a mixture of the resentment he's still holding on to from the last relationship and honestly him being angry at himself for resorting to this whole rent-a-girlfriend service. And all of this being projectile vomited in this poor girl's direction while a crowd of people watch, thinking that she broke this dude's heart or some shit. Alright, so for the next section, I'm gonna attempt to summarize as much as I can, but we'll see. After others start noticing the meltdown, she grabs Kazuya by the arm and drags him into a back closet. Once away from people, for the first time we get to see her break character, finally seeing the real Chizuhara. Kazuya comes to realize from her angry rant just how extraordinarily petty he had been with the 1-star review he gave her for no actual reason. And all of his weird fail RP moments with randomly asking these strange questions about why she does the job or why any of it matters. Which to that she promptly reminds him that he was the one who ordered the date and accepted the terms. Just as she finishes her rant, Kazuya gets a phone call in regards to his grandmother, who had apparently collapsed and was brought to the hospital. He of course rushes off before finishing the date, so Chizuhara chooses to follow him there. They arrive and are in the room with his grandmother. Luckily, she was fine and just needed to rest, but once Kazuya's parents, who are also there, notice the girl next to him, the focus completely turns to them. They then ask him a semi-serious question if she is his girlfriend, assuming that the answer is going to be negative since Kazuya was known for not having a great track record with women. But to their surprise and Chizuhara's, he suddenly doubles down on the whole girlfriend thing and claims that, in fact, she is his girlfriend. The grandmother by far has the most visceral reaction to the announcement and demands to be released for celebration while also crying. The parents leave and the three of them are left in the hospital room. The grandmother then asks quite an intrusive question about their physical compatibility, if you catch my drift, and the reason she asks this is because she believes that physical compatibility is important for marriage. As she talks more and more, it seems the hole Kazuya tossed himself into sinks deeper and deeper, but Chizuhara switches her acting back on and gives a really good answer, perhaps an answer too good. Kazuya's grandmother is extremely impressed and races off to her hospital buddies to flex her grandson's relationship. Chizuhara then drops the act again and starts freaking out since not only was Kazuya's grandmother a patient here, but also her grandmother, who had no clue she does this whole rent-a-girlfriend thing as a job. Not wanting to have to explain that to her, she grabs Kazuya for the second time today and drags him into the next room over. She then begins devising an escape plan, but before she's done, the horde of gossiping grannies can be heard approaching their room, with Kazuya's grandmother calling their names. Right before the door slid open, they jump under the sheets in the hospital bed. Seeing that no one else is there and assuming the big human-sized lump under the sheets is just another patient, they all begin to leave before his grandmother hears noises coming from the room, and being the nice woman she is, doubles back to check up on them. Since they were rushing to hide, the position they ended up in wasn't exactly businesslike. Kazuya, on top, happens to pop a fatty, which freaks out Chizuhara and kicks off another fight. But as I said, all this ruckus had drawn Kazuya's grandmother right back to them. Chizuhara puts on her best frail and disease-ridden elderly woman voice, which fools her. Once leaving, Kazuya chooses possibly the worst time ever to try and pull a move. Half chopped and sweating it under some sheets in the dementia ward. Chizuhara promptly responds by jamming her clog into his crotch so hard that it launches him off the bed, slamming him on the floor, which makes so much noise that Kazuya's as well as Chizuhara's grandmother just happen to be around close enough to hear the noise and enter. Skip ahead ahead 5 minutes and the grandmothers are bonding over how happy they are that their grandchildren are dating. So where does this leave the two? Firstly, it's all bullshit. None of this is real, there is no relationship, no girlfriend, and certainly no marriage. But at this point they may as well suck it up and get together, because honestly it'd probably be easier to do that than exposing the facade and crushing the one dying wish of his grandmother. No, seriously, the show makes sure to put emphasis on the fact that Kazuya's grandmother has been a lovely and hardworking person her entire life, and that her one wish before death is that Kazuya finds a partner. And as you can probably guess, the rest of the show gets into this further. Near-death scene, love triangles and shit, the whole works. But what's that I hear you say? Yeah, super cool and all, but what in the ever-loving fuck did that segment have to do with anything? Great question. For the people who aren't just asleep and this video happened to autoplay on, what was one big pattern you picked up through that entire retelling? Apart from the lead guy fucking up every minute decision possible. If you said anything like, well, it seems like everything's falling in this dude's lap, even when he's making an unconscious effort to fuck it up, then you'd be correct. Look, I'm not a rocket scientist or anything, but I'm pretty fucking smart, so you know what? I think it's time to go back to my roots, crack this case, and explore this theory a little further. It's no mystery that people love convenience. Convenience is one of the biggest driving factors to virtually everything in life. It's the reason I can even make these videos and post them where I do, since there's a convenient little group of like-minded monkeys out there that happen to value the same random internet topics as much as I do. But it can't always be sunshine and anime titties. There's always a catch, always a downside. And in the case of anime romance, it's shown to have affected the genre heavily. Let me explain. Whether you've been in a relationship, are in a relationship, or haven't/wouldn't touch one with a 10-foot pole, most people recognize the fact that they aren't generally very convenient. Sure, you can supplement smaller basic human needs like shitting to a giant ceramic bowl, but emotions and relationships are a lot more complex, and complex issues generally have complex solutions. In real life, you can't just modify your living situation to best suit finding your partner for life. On top of that, building this cast iron bond with a person isn't exactly something handed out at the entrance of every Walmart. Each situation varies depending on the people, the places, and any other multitude of troublesome variables. So when real life is too inconvenient, fuck it! Supplement that deep, dark, empty hole in your withered heart with something beyond reality, something of fiction. Movies and TV shows are commonly this metaphorical plug for that hole of yours, and as a plug, they do a pretty damn good job. Imagine the hottest guy or girl you know personally, and I can guarantee that there's a 24-year-old Botoxed out the ass that trumps that person in looks tenfold. Personality is of course an important thing as well, right? Well, that's great because humans have adapted to the common fault of being an all-round shitty person with this one simple and convenient trick: acting combined with a well-written script. With the mystical powers of a team of writers, directors, and a touch of persuasive editing, the land of romance is yours to rule. Make anything you want, set at any time you want with any selection of people you'd like. However, there's just one thing wrong with this. Sure, people can look nice, but what are people but giant bags of flesh and bone? The story may be fiction, but people are always based in reality, and reality just can't be broken, right? Well, that is where you're wrong. If you can't get the human form to look the right way at all times and in all places, no perfect performed lines with perfect looking faces, that is entirely fine. Just animate it. With animation, anything is possible in the most literal sense of the word. If you can draw it by hand, you can stimulate your cerebral glands, is what I always say. Perfect looking everything placed in perfect situations. But why would anime be more susceptible to this? Honestly, it's all due to the way many animes take advantage of their freedoms to exaggerate not only visual aspects of their presentation of stories, but even the actions and decisions characters make in general. Think about it for a second. What really is a tsundere, yandere, dere, but star signs for anime? I too am shy around the ones I like. This short bitch with a stick and I are literally the same human being. And to clarify for a second, these themes can be found in the greater genre of anime as a whole. But it seems that in romantic/harem/love animes, it's a lot more concentrated. Why? Because people watch action not to plug the hole in their hearts of wanting to fly around with big tanks of steam strapped to their waist, slicing up giant people with oversized box cutters. They do it for entertainment, but that's beside the point. Sure, you do the same thing for rom-com anime, but it's all designed in mind for your fantasy. Well, not specifically for your fantasy, but it provides you with a situation so easy, and with a main character average looking but stupider than you, so that you can't help but think, I could 100% do better than that guy. All of this is fine. I'm not here to crucify one of the most beloved and popular genres of anime ever, producing some of the world's and personally my favorite stories out of any medium. Rom-coms are great. They're feel good, they're interesting, and occasionally sad. But at some point you start to realize something. You see, the saddest part of enjoying these shows is knowing that having that connection with a person so deep, tested through every trial and tribulation you could possibly go through, and coming out stronger than before while being bonded together as one just isn't realistic. Knowing that you'll never have something that immeasurably euphoric in a relationship if you had 10 lifetimes to try. And with that kind of depressing note, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.